and welcome to yet another episode of The Grind with me, your host, Hibak Said. This week, we're going to be featuring a business that a lot of people know about. However, have you ever thought about its expansion? What are the tidbits that usually go into it? And how exactly people in that industry are faring? We go to market margins, but today, we're focusing on photography. Thousands of Kenyans practice photography as either their main or side hustle. The subsector, which is a main employer in the gig economy, has gained more and more popularity over time. As social media continues to gain traction, individuals veer more and more towards the profession to tap into the increased demand. However, the number of professionally trained photographers still lags behind, with only about 900 certified professional photographers existing in the country, a number that is a stark contrast of total photographers partaking in the trade. For perspective, the majority of photographers earn a salary between 18,026 shillings and 83,013 shillings per month in 2024. A monthly wage for entry-level photographers ranges from 18,026 shillings to 51,910 shillings. After gaining 5 years of work experience, their income will be between 21,717 shillings and 66,260 shillings per month. However, photography is a skill, which means that all that is required is for one to grow in the given skill. Currently, social media sites such as YouTube offers hands-on training which could significantly grow one from an amateur photographer to a professional one. Here are, however, some areas you can engage in to grow your skills and scope in this field. 1. Studying requirements of a particular assignment. Decide on the type of camera, the film, lighting, and background accessories to be used. 2. Determining picture composition. Make technical adjustments to equipment and photograph subject. 3. Operating scanners to transfer photographic images to computers. 4. Operating computers to manipulate photographic images. Adapting existing photographic images to create new digitized images to be included in multimedia products. And finally, using airbrush, computer, or other techniques to create the desired visual effect. Right, as promised from Market Margins, we already have our entrepreneur of the day. If you could just start by introducing yourself. What is your name? What exactly is it that you do?
I'm Joshua Ekumo. That's my official name. Another name is To Be. That's what business industry call me. Right. But I'm a businessman dealing with photography, both videos and still photos.
To Be Photography. Where exactly did this name come from? There's a number, there's, two letters there, there's a word. Where did it come from? Where was the inspiration from?
My inspiration was way back in 2008. I think when I started the information industry it was just an advertising website, right, where you can get every information you want. So I took it like to be informed, the place to be. So that's how it all started. We did some online marketing on information. You want anything online, you get there. Even if you're looking for a place to rent, you get the information on the website. So that is how it began as To Be Information. Then it came to Be Graphics, because we also did now for designs and graphics, printing work, branding. Then now anything that I do, it's under To Be. So To Be Graphics, there's now To Be Photos. If anything will ever come, it will be To Be something.
Right, and photography is changing so much nowadays. We see a lot of, freelance photographers, even on the streets of Nairobi. People are changing so much. How have you adjusted since 2008?
It's been a roller coaster of upgrade, because anytime you slug or go slow on technology, you find yourself way back and people are going. Technology is the fastest growing industry, and photography is part of technology. You have to grow with it. There's freelance guys doing this. There are people who are doing professional photography. There are those who are doing it for fun. But at the end of the day, It's your goals, it's your market target, it is your customer satisfaction and creativity that builds it to make it a beautiful industry.
Of course, your business has different places where you can capture these moments. There are indoor photo shoots, outdoor photo shoots. Where we are right now is a very creative setup. I'm seeing it could be a living room. The lights are very attractive. Yeah. I would love to take a photo here. I might take a photo here. How exactly do you balance between indoor and outdoor? Where are the clients usually coming from? Where do you get the most clients?
Okay, of course, at the moment, the most clients are indoor at the studio. But we also have outdoor clients. There are those who prefer like garden kind of shoots, street shoots, yeah, maybe a home living room shoot. Those who can't even come to the studio, they'll have a house call. Maybe they are young babies, they want to do baby shoots. They prefer at home. But majorly, maybe I can say 70% is in the indoor studio shoots.
And adjusting is very important for survival, even for your business, and your business has survived.
And you have to create an environment that looks like maybe a home, a house. It's not just like a studio kind.
For the beginner, if you could just list a couple of things that they would need, what exactly would I need if I wanted to start photography seriously?
On a serious level?
Yes.
Because there's always a beginner level and a serious level.
Let's mix it up a little bit.
Okay, for a beginner, of course, definitely we'll need space because unless you want to do freelance. But if it is studio work, you'll need space. Maybe you need a room to rent. And then after that, you'll need the camera, of course, the equipment's needed, camera, some lights, and then maybe setups for photography, computers. Maybe if you don't need staff, maybe you're alone. You can start alone, you can start with 2 people, yeah. So it depends with the budget. And then also it depends on whom you want to target as a client.
Right. Your target audience is very important.
It's very important, yes.
So because different people come for different packages and they can pay different, amounts of money. Let's talk competition for a little bit. You've said a lot of people nowadays have cameras. Everyone is a photographer apparently, even with their phones. How do you deal with this?
It's now just coming down to customer satisfaction, the creativity part, the quality part of it, the relationship part of it, because there's a way you can always chase away a client, how you relate, or you can bring more clients on how you relate with them. The competition, of course, it is stiff. It comes down to a lot of things. People are using phones. Right. There are some beautiful phones with beautiful cameras, but there's something they lack, and that's what we capture, the creativity part. The editing part, they will not do it with their phones. So at least that one is giving us an edge. They'll have to look for us. They'll have to have a better thing than what they do on their phones. And with the competitors, of course, it's just miling up one another. Someone is doing something better. Next time you come up with a better idea.
And finally, of course, every business has advantages and disadvantages. There are things that you love. There are things that you don't love so much. What are the advantages and disadvantages of your business?
It has more advantages, of course. Right. First, it is giving you a daily income because at the end of the day, you need to stabilize yourself as a person of business. Advantages are more than the disadvantages, but there is a lot of talk about licenses, the investment involved, the costs in operating this business. It is not easy because you need to get maybe staff. You need to dress clients, you need to invest in those kind of things, you need to invest in big cameras. Right. And at the same time, you're also looking at your income level. If it is down, you want to go to those mileage. And there are some investments, like right now, banks are always being skeptical on investing in people's business because of the defaults. People are defaulting in paying loans and all that. So banks are also cautious on improving businesses. But at the same time, it is coming down to us as business people to make sure that whatever we come on our table, we have to invest the same money in the same business so that it can grow faster.
Let me take you back a little bit. You've said paperwork, and of course each business needs paperwork. What paperwork is needed for your business? What permits do you require? There's so many permits, especially with the county governments. Of course, okay, they're necessary because that is in the law. They have scripted in the law. You have to follow. There are permits for corporates, there are permits for fire, there are permits for the business itself, the office work. And at the end of the day, it also goes with the kind of business you're doing because the rates are different. You'll find studios are being charged this amount,
studio salons are charged this amount, corporate businesses are charged this amount, but at the same time, if you don't comply, you won't run your business.
Right. You have to comply at the end of the day. You know, you make sure you give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and then you can run with your business. Sure. For the grinders that are watching this, maybe a one-liner, what would you tell them?
I will tell them this is a nice investment. Of course, it's out of passion. Mm-hmm. You cannot do something without passion that can take you levels. Mm-hmm. Passion is the most important thing. If it's passion you have for photography, it will definitely take you to levels. Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, you have to wake up sometimes at 3 a.m., you're going to work. Sometimes you won't sleep, you're transnighting, you're working. So it's just passion. But at the end of the day, check on your passion.
Right. The creative industry needs a lot of passion. If you have the passion for it, of course, you'll have the grit and grind that is required to run that particular business. This is photography. Of course, we'll have an expert who's going to deduce what exactly he has said. Now exactly you can take advantage of this business. If you're thinking of going into photography, we go for a very short break, but when we come back, business capital, and then afterwards, we have our expert of the week.
Having highlighted some of the businesses that usually thrive during this month, some services and goods offered by these businesses solely relies on the emotional satisfaction of the customer. So how can you achieve this for yourself? 1. Consider the experience you are offering. You build brand loyalty by giving your customers the feeling that they are important to you. There are many levels to this, from using language they'll connect with to treating them like they matter on social media. Engaging with who they are apart from a hand with a wallet will build customer loyalty. Robocalls are the polar opposite of this strategy. 2. Satisfy their need to connect. Almost 90% of social media messages are unanswered by brands who send 4 times as many posts as replies. Build an emotional connection to your customers and create compelling stories by developing a social customer satisfaction strategy. Establish what resources you'll need to ensure consistency, listen carefully to what your customers are saying, and respond authentically in a timely manner. An authentic relationship matters more than an emotional connection in creating customer satisfaction. Marketing strategies that are most effective have at their foundation a commitment to creating a genuine human connection and authentic relationships. Once that is in place and trust and rapport are the framework, marketing strategies are more likely to succeed. 4. Learn to listen. To emotionally connect with customers, we must listen. Listening sends a strong message that tells customers that this relationship will be more about their needs than ours. That builds trust. In addition, when we listen, customers tell us what they need, in their words. As a marketer, you can use their language when you market. Using their language says you listened, you heard, and you are responding. 5. Always make it personal. You want people to get excited about your business, and that can't happen without establishing an emotional connection. That means treating every touch point with your customers like a face-to-face conversation. What information would you share? How would you talk about your products? Would you be smiling? Consumers have a lot of choices. It's your job as a marketer to give them a reason to care. Create strategies around the moments of truth. Effective marketing understands that brand experience is more emotional than cognitive. This starts on the front end with marketing messages and continues into the long-term relationship through appreciation and even upselling by leveraging quality customer data. The key is to humanize the brand through products and services that solve problems. And finally, remember the 4 communication profiles. Customize messaging to 4 communication styles and mitigate the underlying fear. Task-oriented extroverts fear being taken advantage of. So, sell data-driven results. People-focused extroverts fear social rejection. So, pitch client testimonials. Task-oriented introverts fear criticism of their work. So, minimize personal risk. People-focused introverts fear loss of security. So sell family safety.
And right from our business capital, we have our expert of the week, who's also going to be our expert of the month, Moses. How are you?
I'm doing well.
So this month we have featured a couple of businesses that touch on services, that touch on ensuring that people's experiences are paid for. Right? We were talking about photography, we were talking about events, we had talked about flowers, we've talked about cake. The month of love is about experiences. What would you tell us about businesses that usually render experiences?
Well, I think the most important thing in human life is what you experience, and those businesses are more closer to people because this touch in their daily life. And I think one of the appeal of this business to people is how well they give this experience to the person looking for the experience.
Right, Moses. The service industry is very ripe. However, when it comes to rendering services, you don't necessarily have goods that you can give as a sample. You can only promise an experience and then thereafter try to sell it. How exactly do people package, services?
I think the most important thing when you're packaging a service is ensuring that when you put it out there, people can actually relate. You see, even services can be put into words or actions. They can be animated so that the world out there actually this is the feeling that comes with this service. I think that's the most important thing. Can you enable people to relate, to feel before they actually experience it? Once you master that, you can attract the people to come to you.
And then you can translate this into numbers. And the creative industry, because we were talking about photography earlier in this particular episode and how exactly you should be creative so that you gain an edge above your competitors. What would you tell us about that?
Well, in the world of photography, there's a lot of people in it. So the difference comes in here is how well can you do it? Because people have the way they want to be perceived. So can you be able to make somebody be perceived the way they want to be perceived? Because that's the most important thing. It's here what the customer really wants. So a customer going for photography or videography or looking into this area of business, the intention is to actually let the world know a part of themselves or a version of themselves that they themselves want to expose. So can you be able to recreate this and to ensure that you actually do that? Because again, it's not about what you can do, it's about what they really want. So how do they want to be seen? I think that's very important. Once you understand that dynamic of business, then all the other things can fall into place because you actually customize everything towards the customer we are talking in this case scenario.
Right. Other than, the cakes business, the bakery business, and, the flower business, a lot of these other things are intangible. You're selling either an experience or you're selling a thought to a person. When it comes to selling something that is intangible, a lot of people would not buy into it because it's not something I can keep for a very long time. For businesses, that are watching this particular episode, what would you tell them they should use in order to attract these people?
One, I think mostly they can bank on platforms that can be trusted. In the world we exist today, trust is such a key component of business because if people can actually trust you, they can actually buy into your ideas and into your services. So how do you create this trust in relation to that? So for example, mostly now in the digital era, when you put things out there, there's a lot of fraud. So how do you differentiate between that? And one of the things that people look into, can we actually attach you to a specific location? Whether you are operating digitally, but can we attach you to somewhere? Or the platform you're using, can it be verified? That's very important because, again, if you just use the general platform, the rate at which fraud is happening can discourage people. So I think it's really important that every person and every business start off by ensuring that they maximize on the platforms that have already been verified. Because again, once people actually know you more, the recommendation now flow in. Now you can use the general platform. But until we get there, we need to bank on the platforms that exist.
Right, and I'm glad you've talked about recommendation, because one of the recurring themes in between all of these businesses is the fact that they all, bank on their brand. When it comes to building your brand as an individual, as a business, what are some of the things one should consider?
I think by branding, the basic thing is, what do you want people to know? So when you come from that basic idea of, this is what I want people to know exactly about this, what I'm offering. So one thing is trying to create a brand that people can trust. And how do you do that? By ensuring that it relates to people. So ensuring that you humanize your brand. Once that is done, then you can work on all other levels. And then your brand needs now to be adaptable, because now in the world of services, things change a lot. So you need to ensure that your brand is flexible enough so that when changes happen, you can actually adapt them. And then I think that an important thing, you need to keep people aware that this brand exists. We have had scenario whereby some businesses have, the awareness has been done so often until people associate a certain service with that business. So it's very important for any brand to be known. So, and nowadays with the digital space, you can actually do that with a low cost. You don't have to use the mass media platform, although that's also important. But with that, and also ensuring that you are consistent, because people see things often and often. Most people who are on the online platforms may not necessarily use a lot of time on things, but when it's so consistent, that might attract somebody's attention. And that's very important if a brand has to grow.
When it comes to this particular, flexibility, especially for these businesses, how exactly can they make it longer all through the year? How do they ensure longevity?
Yeah, so mostly for businesses that depend on peak and booms and lows, it's very important first to understand when do we peak, so that by the time that comes, we are very ready to serve. Because in business, people are looking for the least inconveniences that come with that. So you need to have well planned before the peak comes. But now on the off season, it's important to understand that business that operate on a seasonal basis. Now the off season, maybe the stock might not be depleted by the time the peak is done. So in this case, you can bank on the locality of where you operate, and there is where maybe you can come up with specific deals to ensure that those locals who necessarily might not be wanting that because it's season, but they can still utilize that, can actually come and buy. So what that does, it ensures it maintains the local market intact, in that even when the peak comes, people remember that during the off-peak, when I needed a certain thing that was not so much in demand, I could get it at a specific bonus or deal somewhere.
Right, thank you so much, Moses. You've said speed, you've said efficiency, and raising awareness. And of course, if it's not just these businesses that we highlighted this month, but any other business that you would want to venture into, these are some of the things that you should be looking into to ensure that you have longevity and success in whatever venture it is you're going to be taking part of. My name is Hibak Said, and this is The Grind. Until next week, same time, same place, good night.
We value your feedback.